Hi guys, I just wanted to come to y'all. I am exhausted and can barely keep my eyes open, but what a week it's been. And I just wanted to come and tell the story and the awesome testimony of Mark's emergency open heart surgery at 40 and got the kids down and had a minute to share with you guys. So on Wednesday, actually last Monday, my sister-in-law, Mark has an identical twin brother, and my sister-in-law, his wife Katie, let me know that one of their dear friends, their son's swim coach, had just dropped dead in her house at 43 a couple of weeks ago. Perfectly fit, no prior health issues, no explanation. They were doing an autopsy, but they suspected a heart or brain aneurysm. So she urged her husband, Mark's twin, Matt, to go get his heart checked out because they have a history of severe heart problems. And so Matt went and got an EKG and it came back abnormal. And so my sister-in-law, Katie, messaged me and said, look, this came back abnormal. It's just on my heart. Please have Mark go. And we've been telling Mark for years to go. Last year, he asked his PCP and he's like, oh no, dude, you're 39, maybe at 40 go, you're fine. There's no reason to freak out, whatever. So he kind of blew it off. Well, I get on ZocDoc, the app, and just pick a cardiologist that was down the street that happened to have availability 2 days later. And I thought, well, who knows who this dude is, but he got through med school, so he can do an EKG and an echo, right? So I picked this guy, and Mark goes, and I call him, and I had forgotten that he was going during the day to the ER. I'd cleaned out the garage, and I had just gotten out of the shower, and I was going to go pick up Eva and come back and rush to get ready for small group Bible study. And Mark's voice was like, Mama, it's not good. And I haven't heard that voice since his dad was dying. And I was like, what is it? And he's like, I need to go to the ER right now. I have something potentially life-threatening. And I was like, the whole world just stopped. So I called my mom and asked her if I could bring the kids after I picked Eva up. And I told Mark, did you ask the doctor this? You know, men, y'all don't ask questions, or they don't ask questions. So I said, did you ask the doctor this? He's like, let me hang up, ask him that. I'll call you back. So he calls back and says that the doctor had made a call to one of his really good friends in the medical center, and that he said, don't go to the ER because you could be there for, hours, days, and it could cost double to triple. But to prescribe him a medicine that would slow his heart down, that would take the pressure off this aneurysm. He had an aneurysm on his aortic valve. Your aortic valve is the main heart valve, and there are 3 flaps around that valve that help with the pumping of the blood. And Mark has a bicuspid flap, which he only had 2 instead of 3. So it caused a buildup in an aneurysm that was about 5 centimeters, which 5 centimeters is the time you're supposed to contact a surgeon, because we were told then if it burst, he'd be dead before we could get to a hospital. But he's like, but don't freak out, that's really hard news in the same sentence, right? So we're trying to stay calm. And he said, just take this medicine and I'm going to see if I can't get you in the morning. So the lady calls from this guy that he made a phone calls to office and said, it'd be a miracle if I can get you in the morning, but let me see if I can get you in. And so she said, I'll call you back in the next 30 minutes. And she said, okay, I made a miracle happen. Can you be here at 6:45 a.m.? And we're like, yeah, absolutely. We'll be there. So we go down to Methodist at 6:35 or 45. This is a thoracic surgeon. And so to get a cardio CAT scan. So we do the CAT scan, and then we're going to go meet with who we learned was Dr. Gerald Laurie is his name for results. And in the meantime, I finally had some time to research this doctor, and I was blown away, you guys. Like, I discovered that he's literally one of, if arguably not the best thoracic surgeon in the world. Like, he operated on Barbara Bush 9 years ago. He has done more of these aortic and heart valve replacements than any surgeon in the world. He operated on a daily basis with Michael E. DeBakey, that has the DeBakey Heart Center downtown, right? He operated on the Shah of Iran, the president of Turkey, the king of Belgium, and a number of other royal figures. So I was just like, what? This is nothing but God, that we picked some random doctor on ZocDoc and he's in with this guy, right? And then when we finally waited for the day and met with him, he informed us that the reason that he got us in so quickly is that he had been like 30 to 40-year friends with this random doctor we picked it, had no idea who he was from anybody on ZocDoc, but God sure did. And he got him in because he's been lifelong friends with him. And he pleaded with him to get Mark in and told him his age. And as all this is happening, we, ironically enough, we get a text from Katie, our sister-in-law, that tells us that that day, the 29th, is World Heart Day for congenital heart defects. And I'm like, you can't make this stuff up, right? And that was a heart defect that Mark had. So typically when there's an aneurysm, like I said, you see a surgeon at 5 centimeters. But we learned that if you have a congenital heart defect, they operate as at 4.5 centimeters, because oftentimes it having been there for so long, there's a lot more inflammation and damage than once they get inside than any of the tests can show. So Dr. Laurie he has the best bedside manner. He's this Australian guy that's just 76, so charming, smart as a whip, but he pretty much just told us, like, don't wait. If this bursts, he'll be dead. But he still somehow kept us calm. And he said that, he gave us a list of things in case we didn't do surgery right then that next day, of things that can make the aneurysm worse or burst. And crazy enough, Mark was literally doing everything on that list. It's things you would think were healthy, like lifting weights, but lifting weights literally can double the pressure inside that valve and cause it to burst. Drinking pre-workout, drinking coffee, energy drinks. Mark was doing every one of those on a day-to-day basis. So every single thing that could have made it burst, Mark was doing. And basically, so he says, do you want to do this next week? When? And we're like, okay, tomorrow. And then the lady comes in, the surgeon, to say, be here at 5:30 in the morning. And we're walking out to go to the elevator to be worked into pre-op. And this doctor comes out and he stops us and says, oh my gosh, are you the young guy that needs the aortic aneurysm repair with Dr. Laurie? And we're like, yeah. And he's like, I'm going to be in surgery tomorrow. Don't worry. You're in the best of hands. It's all going to be okay. And so I start putting two and two together. Like, this is all such a blur. Y'all have to understand, there was less than 36 hours between going to the doctor for a checkup and being in open heart surgery, right? So it was just so fast that we didn't have time to think, but that was also God, because I would have flipped out. So I started Googling and thinking, why was that such a big deal? Like, is this rare? And I discovered that even in the age range of 68 to 74 years old, there's less than a 5% chance of developing this aneurysm, much less anybody at the age of 40, right? So it was just a complete whirlwind. We got worked into pre-op. We had to go back to outpatient, get a chest x-ray, went home, packed the kids' bags, brought them to my parents, ate dinner, went to sleep, set the alarm for 4 a.m. We're up, it's surgery day, right? And it just all flew by. It was prep, it was pre-op, and then it was time to just kiss my husband goodbye. And I looked him in the eyes and he said, I love you, baby. And I said, I love you too. And I've never seen fear in his eyes like that ever in our whole relationship. And I held it together for him. I was like, you're going to be okay. And we said, I love yous. And he got wheeled off into surgery, and I turned around and I just started to cry. And I walked out, and my best friend Lolita was in the waiting room, and I just saw her and lost it, hugging her, right? And so I walked back to the front desk. I had all of Mark's belongings and his computer, and I walked back to the front to go get him a locker. And I just was nervous, I guess, and I felt compelled to tell this lady our story. I'm like, this is such a whirlwind. I just can't even believe this is real. It was just Wednesday afternoon that we even found out there was a problem. And she's like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah. She's like, you just found this out Wednesday afternoon, and your husband is in surgery right now this morning with Dr. Gerald Laurie. She's like, do you understand people fly from all over the world, and the wait, like how busy he is and the wait that happens to be in with this surgeon? And I was like, really? She's like, he is the best of the best. And she just grabbed my arm and said, I want you to know, please know, this is nothing but the Lord. And I said, I already know from the events that have happened. There's no other way to explain this. And she just said, she looked at me and said, amen. Just hold on to your faith and pray, and it's all going to be okay. And my friend and I went for breakfast, so we didn't have to wait. And not long after, earlier than expected, the doctor called and said, you know what, the surgery, it only took me 27 minutes to get that aneurysm out. He was only on the bypass machine for 40 minutes. Y'all, I didn't even know he was on the bypass machine. I had no idea. I knew they were going to saw through his breastplate, right, or breastbone. I had no idea they were going to literally stop his heart, operate, put him on a bypass machine. And thank goodness I'm an avid researcher. I would have lost my mind had I known that. So again, God just, keeping me calm so we could get through this. But basically, then they closed him up. I was able to go up to ICU, and yesterday was just so tough. The recovery, I've never seen him in so much pain. It took me over an hour to feed him about a fourth of a meal last night, and that was the first solids he'd had in about 48 hours. And if y'all know my husband, that man loves to eat. So the fact that I was having to force feed him a part of a meal when he has seconds and thirds was just so sad and humbling. And the reality kicked in of the recovery. Like, he's still in the ICU tonight. He was able to walk today. The recovery is looking like we're hoping he can get out of the ICU tomorrow, 3 to 5 more days in the hospital, and then 4 to 8 weeks where he can't lift, he can't lift more than 5 to 10 pounds. So, but I'm just so thankful. The doctor came by today for the first time, and on the weekend, nonetheless, best bedside manner ever. And told him, I'm so glad that you did the surgery exactly when you did and didn't wait, because when we got in there was more inflammation than we could have even seen on any of the tests. And that could have burst literally at any given second. So there's so many takeaways from this. First of all, if there's any kind of heart health history or congenital defect history in your family, please go see a doctor. Like, better safe than sorry. We would have never found this. I'm doing this video because everybody was like, what were the symptoms? There were none. There were no symptoms. By the grace of God, sadly, that swim coach lost her life. But I feel like, and the craziest thing too, his twin brother then went to the same doctor to get an echo to follow up on his heart defect, and his echo was perfect, which is just further proof. My sister-in-law called me and said this was all so Mark's life could be spared. So I'm just humbled, you guys, so much. But second, I want you to know that we serve a God of miracles. You guys, if for everything that we worry about, I just think about that God just saved my husband's life from a fatal situation that could have happened at any second, that we had no clue it even existed. He's a perfectly healthy 40-year-old man that would have just dropped dead, and we would have never known what happened until it was too late. So I just want to urge all of you, whatever's on your heart tonight, whatever you're struggling with, whether it's a relationship or money or finances or your health, give it to God. He sees so much more. If he saved my husband from something we didn't even know existed, how much more can he take your troubles? And he already sees the outcome. He has the answer. He will protect you and love you. Just give it all to him. I love you guys. Thank you so much. I am so humbled by the love and the prayers and the outpouring of just that y'all be in the hands of Jesus. I cannot thank y'all enough. And keep praying, guys. I love you so much. Thank y'all.